Expectations. It's the podcast where people tell stories and share their small town experiences. My name is Brandi Rose, here with my wonderful partner, Hales Bassing.
Hello.
We're here to tell you today the story of Monica. It's a wonderful, really encouraging, inspirational story, but we will get to that in just a second. We want to remind you that we are on all of the social media. We're super active on Facebook. It's a Small Town Expectations podcast where we post lots of photos and information about the guests who are on each episode. You can also follow us on Instagram and follow us on radbrandy.com, where all of the photos and episodes are posted right there on that website. And I'm finding that folks don't know a lot about podcasting. It's still a fairly new thing. And so if you think that somebody needs to listen to a particular episode, you can send them to radbrandy.com and they can hear all of those episodes.
Don't forget our new platform.
Also, we're on YouTube, where Haley worked really hard putting all of those episodes together in YouTube format with all of the pictures and stories and extra information about each episode. And that is Small Town Expectations Podcast on YouTube as well. And I learned that is a fun way, easy way, I think, for people to be listening. And people are pretty stoked about it.
Yeah.
So lots of ways that you can listen, lots of ways that you can have other folks listen to your story. And if you want to tell your story, you can email us at smalltownpodcast@yahoo.com. Let us know that you want to tell your story and we will get you in to record. We'll come to you and record. We will call you and record. We'll make it happen. This week, we are going to highlight the Community of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. First, I want to send you to Instagram, where there is a photo contest happening on the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, or NSVRC. They have a full lineup of photos that they're encouraging folks to post with certain hashtags, just to spread awareness about sexual violence and also say we stand against it. And so visit that Instagram page and just post some of those pictures. I'm looking at a really cute one of a little girl that they reposted, and it's about consent. This one says, our prompt winner for day number 4 in the 30 days of SAAM contest is, and then they at the person. Thank you so much to everyone who participated. And it's just a little girl who has a sign that says, can I hug you? It's about consent, people.
It's cool.
So Sexual Assault Awareness Month is all April long. Wear teal and show your support for survivors.
We've had a very busy week this week, just because it is April.
Yeah, on Tuesday night, we did a big event for sexual assault services. It's called Take Back the Night. It's actually a national event that happens all over the country at different universities. And really what it's about is folks coming together, standing against sexual violence and saying, we will take back the night. The night will be a safe time for people, because sexual violence happens any time of the day, but the night can be a really scary time. So it's called Take Back the Night, and it's all over Facebook. We posted lots of videos for that, and it was a really, really cool event. We had women come out and share their own personal poetry, which was really special, and I think really moving for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And also women who had never shared that they're survivors were standing up and saying, that they're going to support people and they're going to, stand against violence as a one community.
It was really cool. It's really great to see the community members come out, and people that you wouldn't expect, I guess, is a way to say that, that you created that safe environment, that people are okay to talk about it and show their support.
Yeah, it was a really neat event. And then we just finished up the Vagina Monologues. Last night was our last show, and it was a fun, crazy, exhausting time.
It's really cool. I was able to direct it this year, which we've mentioned a couple times in the past. It's just really awesome, and the Monica today, she is one of the Vagina Sisters, is what we call ourselves. I love the experience. I get to be able to work with all of them and get to know these women in different ways, and then they build their own little community. So it was a great way to start April.
And Monica has a story about sexual violence, about experiencing sexual violence. And so SAAM or SAM is a really special time for her because she is a survivor and she shares a little bit about that story. But really, her story is about recovery from addiction and being in recovery and what that's been like for her. It was a journey. And she has a really moving story of encouragement and just it's an inspiring story.
Yeah.
So she talks a lot about growing up she grows up in Texas a little bit, and then they moved to New Mexico because of the oil field. And her family, her Meemaw gets sick, and so they're traveling back and forth a lot. So every summer she spends her time in a little tiny town called Kermit, Texas. Super small. Fun fact, though, I went to college with some twins. It's the Gainies. They grew up in Kermit. So when she said Kermit, I was like, are you serious? Because I have driven past Kermit on my way back to New Mexico from Brownwood. And it's a really, really, super, super small town. And so whenever she said that, I was a little bit blown away. And also kind of, it's just cool that happened.
Yeah.
So she talks a lot about going back and forth. And then she talks about she started drinking at a really young age, and then she started dabbling in drugs and things like that at a really young age, and just kind of finds herself in a place where she's addicted and how she got through that and what actually changed, like what actually turned the page for her to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I want to just give her a shout out because I know she's going to listen to her episode like as soon as we post this. Happy 9 years, Monica. Today is her ninth anniversary of sobriety. And I'm sitting here and just thinking about that is really, really neat. And just, it's cool. It's cool when people get to celebrate those milestones.
Yeah.
So sobriety is a special gift, and it's definitely something to be celebrated.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of anniversaries, when we post in 2 weeks, that'll be Small Town Expectations podcast 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, we haven't figured out what we're going to do for 1 year anniversary yet, but it's coming up. And so hopefully we'll do something really cool. You'll have to stay tuned for that. If you have an idea and if you want to be on that anniversary episode, let us know because we can make that happen. I was thinking maybe, I don't know, I'm not even going to say anything. But I have some ideas. Some ideas. Mm-hmm. So let's get to Monica's episode. Stay tuned. It's Monica on Small Town Expectations. Thanks for hanging out on Small Town Expectations. I have my friend Monica here with me today. Monica, if you just want to introduce yourself and we'll just kind of get started in your story because it is a really, really cool, lots of just craziness kind of stories. And I'm really excited for you to tell it. So we're just going to jump in.
Hi, I'm Monica. Actually, a lot of people call me Mo.
Okay.
So a lot of people will call me Monica or Mo. I don't know. It kind of just depends on where you know me from. Uh-huh. I have been living here in this area for probably long enough to say I'm from here. But I actually got brought up here when I was a kid from the oil field.
Okay.
I used to live in the El Paso camps. So a lot of people don't, there's a lot of people who don't even remember this, but the El Paso Natural Gas Company, when it was still a company, it's now Kinder Morgan, actually, in this area.
Okay.
But oil field companies used to house their employees in these, like, cookie-cutter neighborhoods. And they'd take these neighborhoods, and it was like house 1, house 2, house 3, right? And they would house their employees in those houses at kind of like discounted prices or whatever. And so their employees could pay rent and have homes there. And everybody in those little neighborhoods, like, they were somehow connected to the company.
Yeah.
And if you got transferred, you always had a place to go because you would just go from one camp to the next. Mm-hmm. And So like I remember I lived in Jal, New Mexico. Do you know where that's at?
No.
It's-
My mom grew up in a oil field camp. She grew up in Governor when it
Okay,
was
yeah.
oh my gosh, I think it might have been Williams.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy that you said that. I was like, oh my gosh, and you're not that old. My mom
No.
is like in her 50s, so it's not weird that my mom grew up in one. But to hear like you say that, I was like, wait, that still happens?
Well, it doesn't really happen anymore. So I remember it. I was a kid, like I was pretty young, and I remember it very well. Of course, I have this ridiculous memory, which is both a blessing and a curse. And like I remember, so Jal, New Mexico, it's Jal, really small town. There's probably a lot of people who know it now because there's a boom going down in that area right now.
What's it close to?
Carlsbad, Hobbs.
Okay.
And it's actually really closer to Odessa, Midland, Kermit, Texas. So it's right over the border of Texas, just inside of New Mexico.
Okay.
And tiny little town. Like what I remember of Jal was like they had this really awesome library where we used to go for story time. And I remember one of the Halloweens we went there, and my friend April was Minnie Mouse and I was a spider. My mom used to hand make my costumes, me and my sister's costumes. And whenever I moved my top arms, my other 6 legs would move with my
How
2 top
cute.
arms. And it was a lot of fun. And but like in that neighborhood that we were in, there was this really awesome playground, and it had this gigantic submarine, and it was like the cool playgrounds that were made out of metal that would probably give you tetanus and really hurt you if any part of it was like broken.
Yeah.
And not the plastic nonsense they have
But
now.
that's the kind of fun that,
Yeah.
that's the healthy kind of fun.
Exactly. And I used to always find marbles in the sand there. And I don't know why I was always finding marbles, but I was always finding the clear marbles. And we'd go collect those in the playground, and then we would put those in our fish tanks because we always had fish tanks growing up. And I have this gigantic collection of those marbles somewhere.
My papa collected marbles. So
Yeah.
like when you say that you collected marbles, like, man, I'm like, I think of my papa and like he died, I think 5 or 6 years ago now, but like thousands of marbles.
Were they the clear ones with like the really wavy things in the
Yes,
middle?
yes.
Yeah. Those were
And-
the ones we would find.
Yeah, and he's the one who worked in the oil field, and he would just go and just comb the sites that he was at and whatever, and would come home with all of these marbles.
Where were they
Always.
coming from?
Seriously, I have no idea. Like, I feel like we need to Google how marbles are made, because is it naturally happening? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's weird. And it's weird to hear that you just would find marbles. Like, that just brought back some nostalgia for me. So,
Well, and I always wondered, like, when I got older, like, why were we always finding marbles at this park?
yeah.
Like, they were just there, and my mom would be like, oh, look, there's more marbles. And, like, we just put them in our pockets and bring them home. Like, who was dropping their marbles?
Yeah.
Like, and then I started thinking, maybe that's why we always say lose your marbles. Maybe that's a real thing.
Because there's literally somebody losing their marbles. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, we lived in that camp, and and it was nice when we were down there because all my family's from Texas. I was born in Texas. All my family like lives in like the Kermit, Odessa, Midland area, or most of them anyway. And so we'd travel back and forth because it was just like a 20-30 minute drive, or at least that's what I remember. Of course, I was like 4 years old,
Yeah.
3-4 years old. And but then we got transferred, and we didn't know, in the oil field, you didn't really ever know where you're going to be transferred.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom talking about it could have been Boston, it could have been California, it could have been really anywhere. And we were kind of given choices. We ended up here, which was the lesser of the 4 evils we were kind of given, I guess you could say. And this was the closest to family,
Okay.
which really worked out because we were really close to family, like extended family. And my Meemaw, she really kind of struggled. She struggled with bipolar, is what I think. I probably shouldn't diagnose her because I have no degree to do that.
Right.
But what I know about bipolar, because I have it, is that it tends to run in families. And she exhibited a lot of symptoms and signs of it. And she was severely depressed. That I do know. And so she was sad a lot, and she kind of hoarded things, and she was so sad, like her gallbladder burst, and she was so depressed she didn't say anything.
She just
She just let it happen.
Everything else was hurting, and so just another pain didn't
Yeah.
even matter to her.
Right. So we were so far away. My dad, like, let my mom, I shouldn't say let, but he was like okay with me, my mom, my sister, like traveling, you know, every summer. Like the last day of school ended on a half day, and we would be already packed, and we would take off to Texas and drive down there from the last day of, or the first day of summer to like a day or two before school started.
Yeah.
And we would just be down there. My mom would take care of my Mima, and she'd help my papa out. My mom would help like organize their house. My Mima kind of, and I think I mentioned this, but she was kind of a hoarder. And she, later, we found out she used to kind of, her dad, we used to think he was a bootlegger. And he would like, I guess, pull up when she was walking home from school, and she would have like her doll on her, and he'd be like, come on, get in the car, we're moving. And he would just like throw her in the car, and they would like up and move across Texas. Well, that's all she was allowed to have was like the clothes on her back and her doll.
Yeah.
So we kind of thought, because of his behavior, maybe he was a bootlegger and the law was after him, something like that. And, you know, we thought that maybe she started hoarding stuff because, you know, she was tired of living that life, and it was like a trauma thing.
Yeah.
My great grandfather, her dad, he ended up dying in an institution. The notes from his hospital stay, reading through those, I believe he probably had bipolar. He probably had manic depression, and they probably didn't know what to call it or how to handle that.
Yeah, so how old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay, so it was probably in the 40s?
Yeah.
30s maybe even?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was not a lot of understanding around that stuff.
Not at all.
Like, not even, and the little things that they did understand, the way that they diagnosed it, the way that they
Or
treated
handled it.
Yes, was almost, it wasn't almost, it was literally scary. It was scary.
Or frightening. It was,
Yeah.
and it was brutal.
Yeah.
It was way brutal. So, and that's another reason I suspect that, you know, my Mima was bipolar, just because of the evidence that I've seen with her dad and my great grandfather. And so I don't think that she was hoarding because of what had happened to her in her life necessarily. I think it was just a symptom of mania for her.
Yeah.
And then she'd get depressed and wouldn't know what to do with it. So
Yeah.
So we would we'd go down in the summers, and my mom would kind of clean through her things, and she was in the nursing home, mostly because we were so far up here and we couldn't really take care of her. My papa really couldn't take care of her, so we would just travel down, and you know, spring breaks if we could, we go down there, things like that.
Yeah.
We try to be as close to them as possible.
Cool.
And we're still close with, like, my mom was like the youngest of five.
Yeah.
And my dad's family's all from down there. And
So I think your mom lives here in Farmington now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah. So we moved up here, and my dad continued to work for El Paso Natural Gas. And we just stayed up here. My dad worked for them until my dad got sick, and you know, he worked for that company all through his life pretty much. And after my dad passed away, we just kind of stayed here. My mom, we had established a life here, and all our friends were here.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, this was home by then.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Cool. So what high school did you go to here?
I went to Farmington High.
Okay.
I believe green.
Yeah.
Go Scorpions.
Because we would have been probably a year apart. I graduated in 03.
Okay.
So you were in 04?
I was in 04, yeah.
Yeah. So we were just a year apart. That's kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, I wonder if I ever saw her.
Did you go to PV?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, and I knew a lot of people from PV because I went to Bluffview, and I was in that weird section of Bluffview where like a few of us went to Hermosa and on to Farmington, and then the rest of them all went to like Mesa View and PV. So I knew a lot, and I still know a lot of people from PV.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I keep in contact with a lot of them even now. Thank you, Facebook.
Yeah, no
etc. So I was a lot of times. I remember in high school, I was at a football game once, and I was talking with someone. I want to say I was talking with someone. I was hanging out with people from PV, talking with someone at Farmington, and they were like, some jerks from Farmington were trying to be jerks to the people from PV. And I was like, hey, and I kind of got mad at them. They're like, you're from PV? And I'm like, actually, I'm a student from Farmington. I just happen to be friends with people from PV. You're just being a jerk.
Yeah.
We'd have some sportsmanlike behavior. It was a little out of hand. But I knew a lot of kids from PV. So
Cool.
yeah.
Weird. It's Haley and I are always like we always find connections in different kind of ways, especially because right now we're doing the vagina monologues, so we just finished doing the vagina monologues, and so there's like these weird connections to people in the cast that we're like, hey, did you know that's that so and so sister or that so and so whatever?
Yes.
And it just kind of builds that whole small town community,
Well, yeah, there's a book. It's called 6 Degrees of Separation.
Oh my gosh, I love 6 Degrees of Separation.
yes.
Yeah, whenever it first came out whenever I was in college.
Yeah.
And we sat down, and I was nannying for a family, and their daughter was kind of a more regular character in Breaking Bad, which there's a lot of people in New Mexico now who've been in that show.
Right.
But she was a semi-reoccurring character. And so we sat down in college, and I was like, listen, just because you guys are my friend, this is how far away we are from all of these people. And it's
Right.
really true.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Isn't it though?
Yes.
And it's even, I notice it more now with Facebook. Because I'm one of those Facebook stalkers. I just like knowing stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll hear something or I'll see something and I'm like, I need to know more about that. So I Google things, I Facebook things. I just need to know more, whether it's about people, information, a movie, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly looking up information. And when I'm on Facebook, I really see that 6 degrees or less of separation between people. And I'll look up somebody and I'm like, oh, wow, we have a mutual friend. And then sometimes I'll talk to that mutual friend. I'm like, hey, how do you know so-and-so? And they're like, oh, that's my cousin. Or, hey, that's, and I'm like, well, that's awkward. Or, hey, that's cool. It's the weirdest thing.
The ones that always make me laugh are when Haley gets a friend request and she's like, hey, do you know this person? And I'm like, no. And then she's like, they're your friend on Facebook. And I'm like, well, listen, I just add people because so if they don't look like a creep and they don't look like they're just friends with a bunch of women, then I will probably friend them. But if they look like a creep or they look like they're only adding women or they look like a bot, of course, you can see when a bot is a bot.
So I used to do that.
Just add people?
No, but that kind of. But I used to screen people oh, okay, they don't look like a creep. They're not just adding women, things like that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, so I saw this person and I saw them responding to comments on my friends' posts.
Yeah.
And and I'm involved in 12-step programs and stuff. And so they were responding to people in my 12-step group. And so I'm like, oh, they must be in the 12-step program. And then at some point they added me, and I didn't know them. Mm-hmm. Their picture looked like a legit person.
Yeah.
But then I was looking at their friends list, and they seemed to know all of my friends. So I added them. turns out that this person was a jaded ex of a good friend, one of my girlfriends, and was being a creeper. And like created this profile.
And it was a fake account?
It was a fake account.
Oof.
I was like devastated. Like it really bothered me.
Yeah.
Like that really bothered me. And so since then, like I have no problem like
Just saying no to somebody.
I don't care if I know you or not.
Yeah.
Like I will say no to you.
Yeah.
I can know you, we can be friends in person, but like I'm a little more choosy with my Facebook, because that one really bothered me because I'm really protective of not just the people that are really close to me in my life, but the women in my life. Like that one really bothered me.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
that one.
I get that.
Yeah. Oh, I was so angry. After that, like I kind of reevaluated people on my Facebook, and so if people message me or try to add me, like especially if it's a secondary profile, I'll ask questions. Like a friend of mine created a second profile. One apparently is for work and one is her personal now. And she, in high school, we were in choir together, and she would do this thing where she stood in front of me and she'd turn around and go, "Be a tree." And so I was like, okay, is this a real account? And she said, "Yes, it's me." And I said, okay, in high school, in choir, fill in the blank. Bia, and I put a blank line, and she put like gifts of trees, and she said tree, and I was like, okay, it's you, because I'm like, I
have to do some vetting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna because I my life has kind of changed, and I just don't want to.
Yeah, for sure.
Let weirdos in anymore.
No, I get that. And I actually admire that a lot. And it's about having boundaries.
Yes.
So
I used to have none, so boundaries are important to me today.
Yes. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, you mentioned being in a 12-step program.
Yes.
Can you just explain what that means?
Yes. So I am in recovery from drugs and alcohol. I today actually is my 9-month clean date.
Yes, which I am so proud of. I'm so excited to hear you say that.
Me too. It's weird for me to say because it's, aside from drugs and alcohol, it's probably the only thing I've ever done for 9 years straight in my life. And it's it's weird for me to say because I distinctly remember moments in my life where I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
I remember moments in my life where I expected to die. And I honestly never knew I could be clean this long.
Yeah.
So
feels good.
It feels amazing.
Good.
So, and I'm really grateful for it. There's been a lot of people on my journey that have really been there for me. And I'm grateful for 12-step programs.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the treatment center that I went to. I'm grateful for the women in my life, because I used to be one of those women who hated women. And I have some amazing women that taught me otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey. It really has.
Cool.
So
that's really great. I'm so excited for you and excited for I think it's about the journey.
Yeah.
And
it has been.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you mind just sharing some of that journey with us?
Yeah, no problem. So, I think a huge part of me, even starting drugs and alcohol,
Can I ask, what age were you when you first, what age were you when you first just sort of recreationally maybe, and then when
junior high.
Okay.
Yeah, junior high.
So started young.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I couldn't tell you, like, the very first time I used or drank in junior high, but I can tell you that, like, I remember, I know I was in junior high because I was hanging out with this friend of mine who was older than me, and she just gotten her license. And we used to run around on the cruise in Farmington, from Sonic to the mall.
Yeah.
And in her little Geo Metro. And And one night we had been smoking pot. And I remember, I was really close to my family and I didn't want to disappoint them. Mm-hmm. And I remember coming home and I was so worried I was going to smell like pot. So I came home smelling like a French whore because I had doused myself in perfume.
Yeah.
Because I did not want to smell like pot. And I remember I went through the garage because I was going to kind of try to sneak in through, try to bypass my parents. And I was going way above and beyond to get into my house. They weren't even there. My parents were gone. They had gone out on one of these rare occasions that they had actually left the house together. And I was like, well, okay, but that fear of disappointing them and that behavior of lying and sneaking around and all of that, it was, that's when it had started.
Yeah.
But I think my whole life, my parents probably knew something was up. So the ADT, the security people were going through the neighborhood and we were outside doing yard work or something and they offered the free installation or whatever. And my parents were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I remember they were discussing with the guy, where the stuff was going to go in the house. And the guy, I remember him telling him okay, so we'll do a window lock on one of the windows downstairs or a window alarm on one of the windows downstairs and one on the windows upstairs. And so which window do you want it on downstairs? So my parents kind of discussed, where it was going to go downstairs. And then he's like, okay, what about upstairs? Without skipping a beat, without discussing it, without looking at each other, they were like, Monica's room. And I'm like, what? Why? I would never sneak out.
Now there's cameras in your house, right?
Well, no, we didn't do the camera thing. It was just the alarms and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would have had to just disarm the thing to sneak out or sneak someone in. So I think on some level my parents knew I was the wild child.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so offended, oh, excuse me. But so I think they kind of knew. But things didn't get out of hand until after high school.
Okay.
And I called up a friend of mine, kind of out of the blue. I was probably, teen angst or something, mad at my parents. And I'm like, I got to move out of my mom's. And call my friend Amanda. And I'm like, we got to move out. Let's get our own place. And so we went to go get our own place. And we ended up taking over this apartment from some other people we knew. And it had been a party house, which I'm sure we didn't really change much. And I was an instantaneous alcoholic. I drank so much. And I went to college right after high school because, that's what you're supposed to do, which I will not ever tell anyone in high school to go to college. I think that's BS. I think that you should do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And then if you feel like going to college, go when you want to.
When I always say, college isn't for everyone. And it's okay. If you don't want to go to college, it's okay for you to decide that.
Right.
And if you decide to go to college in the future, awesome. But for anybody to feel obligated that's the next thing that they're supposed to do, that always makes me a little nervous. And I always say to a teenager, you're not supposed to do anything. You're supposed to figure out what's right for you.
Exactly. To put that in perspective, it's taken me 14 years to get a 2-year degree.
Yeah.
So please don't go into college if you don't want to. And so I had an 8:00 class that I'd kind of roll on into in my pajamas, probably the same pajamas I'm wearing now. And and I was so drunk still, or just I started drinking. I don't know. I didn't even know how I survived. Mm-hmm. I mean, I passed that class. I'll remember it.
Yeah.
I do remember the teacher. He was cool. Mr. Bramhall.
Oh, Dr. Bramhall.
Yeah, Dr. Bramhall.
I had him too.
He's great.
Oh,
He's hilarious.
I know. I
don't remember the class much. I remember him.
What if we may have had that class together? What if we did?
Possible.
I know.
I mean, he was hilarious. It was great, but I mean, I don't remember the first 3 years of me attempting college because I was drunk. I mean, it was ridiculous. But a huge part of my addiction was mental health. Uh-huh. I struggled with mental health since junior high. So and I knew something in junior high. I knew something was wrong. I tried talking to my mom about it. And I remember one of those little teeny bopper magazines that I actually had a subscription to. I remember feeling like all like, I have a subscription. Like all my friends would just pay like $3 a magazine to look at their JTT and all that. But I had a subscription. And I remember reading this article about bipolar. And I remember reading this and I'm like, oh my God, that's what's wrong with me. Because I remember I knew some of the things I was thinking and doing were not okay. I had some level of awareness of that. So I tried bringing it to my mom and she was like, she read it and she's like, nope, it's just a phase, you'll get over it. Which I was like devastated at the time.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I have this different perspective. No mother wants their kids to be sick on any kind of level, and I'm grateful that she didn't like take that and go put me on meds because no 13, 14-year-old needs to be on psychotropics.
Sure.
That's my belief. And because your brain's still growing,
Right.
And so like, I feel like I just dwelled on that though. But I really struggled with mental health. I had real bad anxiety. I was really depressed. I had definitely some touches of mania. But mostly I was very just depressed. There was a 2-week period when we were down in Texas and I didn't shower, brush my hair, brush my teeth. I just did nothing but sit on the couch and eat. Like it was bad.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for it. Like I had a good life. It was just,
it was something happening in your brain.
Right. It was just a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
Like, and I just wanted to die. And like, I can't explain to people. Some people are like, just, I see those memes where people are like, what if we treated mental health like physical health? And I'm like, those are always so relatable to me because people would tell me things like, just get up and do something. And I'm like, I have no desire to live, let alone brush my hair.
Yeah.
I wore the same like thing of clothes for those 2 weeks.
Right.
Like, why would I don't want to get up. Maybe get up. So when I got out of high school and I was drinking more, I always struggled with relationships too, because I wanted to find my self-worth through other people. And so I would always have a boyfriend. And then I'd have a backup because God forbid I be alone.
Yeah.
And then I was just a very messed up person. So if I had like a boyfriend, then I'd have a backup for that boyfriend. And then I had backups for that backup just in case that went south. And then I had those poor guys that I would like, that I knew liked me and I'd kind of dangle with the carrot stick just in case, for whatever happened, the backups didn't work. Like, that's not good. And I was not a good person. But I didn't see that as that. I just didn't want to be alone. And so I was really selfish and self-centered. And because it was just my pain just overtook everything. And I don't know. I was constantly in relationships. I got into this relationship with a person who had personality dissociative identity disorder. And I'd never encountered that before.
Which is intense.
Yeah, because that's something you see in the movies.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Right.
What?
And the way that DID is kind of portrayed in the movies isn't necessarily always very accurate. It's very Hollywood.
Yeah.
But it's still a very intense mental health diagnosis. Yeah. And so it's intense.
It's way intense. And so I got involved in this person who had DID and I didn't know how to handle that. And I probably handled it I have some compassion today for this person in that I know I probably handled it really poorly. However, at 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, I handled it in the way I knew how.
I just want to learn a little bit more about this person. What were the personalities that he would display?
Okay, so he had the person I thought I was dating.
Okay.
Who was this really nerdy guy, would play Dungeons and Dragons kind of nerd. And then there was this backwoods redneck and who was like real, I don't know how to explain. He's just real redneck type.
Sure.
Like he'd
we
go
know
live,
that
he'd go
stereotype.
live in the woods off the land,
Yeah.
kind of redneck. And then there was a goth girl named Cassie.
Okay.
And they all had their own personalities. They all had their own handwriting. They all had their own style of dressing.
Yeah.
They all had their own laughs. It was,
So in your 20-year-old mind, could you discern which was which and how to handle each one?
it took a little while.
Okay.
And it took a while. And I know, because like I said, I handled it poorly. Like I kind of went through their things once, and I like read in their journal, and I know at one point in time there was probably up to 7 personalities.
Wow, yeah.
And I know that they had experienced a trauma that probably brought about these personalities,
Sure.
which is why this probably happened to them.
Yeah.
But there were those 3, and but here was the thing: the 2 male personalities were very abusive to me, and so I remember one time I was going to go hang out with my mom, have a beer with my mom or something, and I was kind of excited because my mom was like, "Yeah, come over, have a wine cooler or something," and I was like, "Well, that's cool," and so I went to go do that, and he told me I couldn't. And it was just me and him at the apartment, and he like knocked me down, and he was like shaking me on the ground, screaming at me. And I would like to say I like fought back, but I froze. Like I completely froze because I think I was like in shock. And we had a roommate, and she came home, and I think when we heard her key in the door, like he jumped off of me and I jumped up. She walked in. It was very awkward. We were all staring at each other, and I just ran into the bathroom because I didn't know what to say. And mostly it was because I'm a very prideful person. I didn't want to have to tell her she was right because nobody liked him.
Right.
My family hated him. My friends hated him. Nobody liked him.
Yeah.
But I didn't want anybody to. I didn't want to have to tell anyone they were right. I didn't want to have to tell people, okay, you're right. That guy was bad for me. That was more than anything. That's what it was. And so I knew then, like, I had to get away from it. And that guy, like, he kicked me, punched me to where I threw up blood a couple of times. I didn't get my security deposit back. There were some holes in parts of the doors or walls. And it was very intense. And
Wow, yeah.
I finally called like his mom and like I was like, "You're not done raising him. You need to send a plane ticket and take him back."
Yeah.
She's like, "It's the other personalities, isn't it?" And I'm like, "You knew about this." I was so mad at her.
Yeah.
But she did. She took him back home across the country. And then I had gained weight. I had gained so much weight. And it was the biggest I had ever been in my life. And I started hanging out with this group of people. It was like, I don't know, 14 people that hung out at this house. And one day I remember there was this guy that was at this house, and they were telling me, "Don't hang out with him. He's a tweaker." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And first off, they told me, "Don't hang out with him."
And your addictive personality goes,
Well, it's not necessarily my addictive personality.
Okay.
It's more like, you don't tell me what to do.
Okay,
I do
yeah,
what I want. And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And but then I also remember pulling one of the girls aside, and I asked her, I'm like, "Okay, don't tell anyone I'm asking you this, but what does it mean to be a tweaker?" And she's like, "Oh, he's just using meth. His eyes are going to be dilated. He's not going to sleep, and he probably won't eat." And I remember thinking, well, that doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound bad at all, because it didn't sound terrible. And so, and everybody kept telling me to stay away from that guy, and he kind of wasn't really in with the rest of that house. And so, of course, I was drawn to him, and then my dad got sick. My dad's this very or was this very imposing, like, he was very tall, Hispanic man with, he was very dark skinned, and he just suddenly was yellow. And we actually, my mom called his boss and was like, he can't go back to work, he's sick, but he won't go to the doctor because he doesn't want to miss work. So his boss kind of was like, you can't come back to work until you go to the doctor and get a release. And he had some blockages in his gallbladder and his bile ducts, and so they put some stents in, and he had this pretty interesting procedure to have that done. And like around that time is when everything really started to get weird. I was 20 years old. I started running a staffing agency, Labor Ready, actually. I was the youngest branch manager in the entire company.
Wow, yeah.
It was like 928 branches.
Wow.
In the U.S. I was also the youngest manager in the, like, when I say entire company, that included the Canadian branches, Puerto Rican branches, and the UK. I had like 584 days without an injury at my branch. I was doing really well. And then my dad, he just kept getting worse. He got put back in the hospital. And that guy that I had since started dating, he wakes me up at like 4:30 in the morning. He's like, come hang out with my friend. I'm like, okay, because I just didn't want to be home. My dad wasn't doing good.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to cope with life. So I took off with him, and he brings me to his dealer's house. And that was when I started doing meth. It was a few days after Christmas. And I didn't have anything to compare it to. Like, I had done several drugs because I'm the kind of, even now, I guess, I'm the kind of person like, I'll try anything once. Sure, whatever. You know, I didn't know I was going to be an addict. I had no idea. And so I had nothing to compare it to. When I say I got high, like, I didn't know I was high. I really didn't. And my dad got put back in the hospital that day. And my boss showed up out of town, and he had hired somebody for me. And he's like, you need to come to dinner and meet this person. And he told me it was okay for my roommate to come to dinner with me because I was all shaky. And I didn't realize that was probably because I was high. I thought it was because I was upset because of my dad. And so my roommate drove me to dinner that night, and I ordered fish tacos, which at the time I thought was a really weird thing, and I never would have done otherwise. And I like took a bite to chew on it, and I like chewed on it for like 10 minutes. And I'm like, why am I not hungry? Why can't I not swallow this?
Yeah.
I just spit it out in my napkin.
Because you just couldn't swallow
Because I
it.
couldn't swallow it. I was not hungry at all.
Wow.
And so they thought I was just upset about my dad too. And we go to leave. My roommate, like, he was driving, you know, and so he started my car and he turned it off and he looked at me and he's like, you're high, aren't you? I'm like, what? How'd you know? Of course, I'm sure my pupils were completely dilated. And he's like, oh, I just know these things. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't know. Like, yeah. And he's like, well, did you like it? And I will never forget this. I just remember like thinking for a minute and saying, I should probably do it again and find out if I do or not.
And that's where it started.
Well, I was already hooked.
Yeah.
I was already there. Like less than 30 days later, I was 90 pounds lighter. I went from 250 pounds to 160 pounds.
In 3 months?
In less than 30 days.
Oh, in a month.
In a month, less than a month. It was more like 24-ish.
Yeah. Dang.
I had an ulcer in my eye because I didn't take my contacts out that entire time. I was borrowing money to pay my $500 rent, even though I had salary pay and I was bringing home, my net pay was like close to $2,000.
Yeah.
I was borrowing money to pay my $500 rent. And
that escalated quickly.
oh yeah.
Wow.
Crash and burn, like.
Yeah.
In the meantime, my dad's possibly dying in the hospital. My mom never left his side. My sister, I think she was in college at the time. She had a boyfriend. She was pretty much just sticking with him because nobody knew what was going on with me, and we're all our whole world was rocked because my dad.
Yeah.
And I very quick, very, very quick, you know, and then, the guy that my boyfriend at the time who had introduced this all to me, that house of people were upset because they saw, I mean, how could you not see that?
For sure.
You know, and, so they called his PO and he went to jail. And I remember him telling me, you need to quit. Drugs are bad. You know, I call it jailhouse syndrome when your significant other goes to jail and they suddenly find God and they're all going to quit drugs and come home and be faithful and be a good significant other suddenly. And so he was telling me all that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll quit. And I did. I quit doing the meth. And took me a few days, but I did. I quit. But see, he had cheated on me. And that person he had cheated on me with, she got kicked out of the house because she was also living in that house at that time. And the roommates were mad at her for that. She didn't have anywhere to go, so I moved her in with me because I'm a sick person, obviously.
Right.
And then her boyfriend kidnapped me and raped me. And I was clean. That happened to me clean. And, you know, and I, again, like, it was one of those moments where, you know, I wish I could say, like, oh, I fought back and all this, but it was another one of those moments where I froze.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that for a long time because I didn't know, like, that I had done what I needed to do in order to survive. Now I know that because I really believed him that he was going to kill me.
Yeah.
When he told me that. But I did say something. So, I didn't say anything right away though. Most people won't. And so I went and I was sober, I was clean, but I didn't stay that way. So first I went and got drunk. But unfortunately, I'm not one of those people who gets so drunk I black out and forget things. That is not my luck. So it just made it worse. So then I went and got high, but then I started talking, got real chatty. And so I ended up telling some people, and they were the ones that were like, okay, well, you need to say something. You have to. So I did. I went to the cops, and they, the cops were great. Sexual assault services, they were great. I was coming down from meth. They were super great because I was coming down. Like, I was ABSing, which is automatic body shutdown. Like, I was just gonna pass out. And I did. Like, I passed out in the middle of my exam.
Yeah.
Like, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was horrible, you know?
But let me just say, folks at SAS are trained to recognize those sort of things.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, we go, well, wait.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we understand that, you know, oftentimes a trauma response is sometimes you go back to something that's comfortable and easy, and that's addiction.
Yeah.
And that's just a trauma response.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And they were great. You know, I ended up losing my job. And my life fell apart again. That boyfriend got out of jail. He cheated on me. I think I tried to kill that girl, but then I stopped myself, and then I said, maybe I should go talk to my counselor. So I walked to PMS to go talk to her. She wasn't there, so I talked to this other lady, and I told her just everything that had been happening in the, like, couple of months, because this was only, 2 or 3 months since I started my drug of choice, and like, I was done talking. I'm like, man, I feel great. I'm going to go home and take a nap now. And she's like, no, honey, you're not going anywhere. So she put me in the behavioral health unit. But I am a sick person, and I'm not healthy. So while I was there, I met a guy who was there. He had been put there because he did hurt himself because of whatever reason. And when he came in, I was like, hey, how you doing? And the behavioral health unit's like, you two need to stay away from each other. And I'm like, hey. So they discharged me early. I was already there for longer than the normal like 72 hours. And on my way out, I slipped in my phone number because I'm not healthy.
Yeah.
You know, what person finds a new boyfriend in the psych ward? I mean, really.
But it's part of it though,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And I'm sure that you recognize it about yourself now.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. Now I'm like, oh, God.
Sure.
So, I mean, it was chaos. And then, I mean, my dad still is in the hospital. My mom never left his side.
Yeah.
I unfortunately, I didn't go see him a lot because it was hard for me. I could not cope with life. I couldn't cope with what was going on.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for my family. And I really got involved in the drug lifestyle real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I was around horrible people, around horrible situations. I lived at the Rimrock Hotel for, God, I really don't want to tell you how long. It was awful. You know, it was some bad things.
Sure.
I was in the wrong place at the wrong time with someone who's now clean as well. But he and I got like beat up. Mm-hmm. I mean, he got the worst of it. They had one of those bully sticks, with the ball on the end. I mean, he got stitches and ambulance ride. It was awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when did the 9 years start?
April 7th, 2010.
Nice.
Yes. And man, and I was on probation. And I couldn't stay clean. I tried. I really tried. I remember telling some people, I am not going to be one of those yahoos who's in and out of jail and they're on probation. I'm just going to stay clean. But I couldn't stay clean on my own. And I didn't stay clean, obviously. At the time that I got clean, I was on probation. I was living in the travel lodge. I had a home, but I couldn't go to it because I had upset a local dealer who was living in my house that I was paying rent on. The feds were watching me and the person I was in the hotel room with because they were mostly looking for the dealer who lived in that in that hotel.
Yeah. Oh, in the hotel.
In the hotel, yeah. And that we were connected with, and which I know because one day some people are like, "Oh, the feds are watching you across the river," and I'm like, "Oh, that's some tweaker paranoia." And I walked outside to show them that it wasn't true, and there was a cop with, you know, clearly a cop. There was uniforms and undercovers, and he had binoculars, and I waved and he waved back. It was very awkward.
Yeah. So they weren't trying to hide it.
No, not at that point. But and I worked at K-Bob's. I was a manager there. I couldn't stay clean. I went to go see my PO, and I show up to go see her, and I'd used, and then I literally I was with that dealer and I used, and then I drove to go see my PO. And I get in there and I thought for a second, oh, I'm gonna lie. And I'm like, so I sit down in her chair and I'm high. I've been high for I don't even know how long. And I tell her like everything. Like I'm like telling her like I've been using for this amount of time, and I'm fighting with my mom, my sister, my old man left me, he's going back to prison, and you know, I just tell her all these things. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, when's the last time you used? I'm like, well, look at my watch. I'm like, about 20 minutes ago. And then I drove here. And she's like, oh, you know, and I ended it with, I don't even know when the last time I showered was. And this woman, God love her, she puts her hands up to her nose and she's sitting across this desk and she goes, I know, Monica, I can smell you. My heart.
Yeah.
It just sunk. I was fine. That was that moment. That was my moment. And she asked me if I could stay clean and if I wanted help, and told her I did. She sends this case manager over to talk to me, and case manager kind of starts talking to me, and I remember crossing my legs and arms looking at this person saying, you know, I don't do group therapy. She's like, oh, okay. I got sent to the Access Treatment Program. And I was in jail for 6 days and then transferred from jail to Access. That was a 60-day inpatient program. I lied to all the drug addicts I knew and told them I was going to Texas. It's weird because sometimes I run into people and they think I'm still down there.
Which isn't a bad thing.
No, that's not a bad thing. But then, when I got out, we got out a day early, actually. And the deal was we had to go to a meeting. And so I went to this meeting and I heard what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
I heard it was a gratitude meeting. People talked about being grateful, having peace of mind, serenity, which I had no idea what that was, but it sounded great.
Yeah.
People were talking about having things and being able to keep it, which sounds weird to be talking about material things. But here was my thing. I worked my whole life, even when I was using. And I had stuff, but it was being clucked off by my boyfriends, because they weren't the best people.
Yeah.
And I would lose it and people would break it. And that, I wanted to have a home and stuff that I got to keep. I wanted to have a car. I wanted a motorcycle that was mine, not my old man's and in my name, that I rode, not on the back of. And people were talking about that. And I wanted that, and I wanted that peace of mind and serenity.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I could stick around. So they said, get a sponsor. I got a sponsor. They said, work the steps. I worked the steps. I worked traditions and steps together. I had a sponsor for a while. My first sponsor ended up moving away. And then I was very sad and lost for a bit because I had to find a new sponsor.
Yeah.
And I did. And my second sponsor, I love her to death too. She's great. I still work steps. I have sponsees now. I still go to meetings. I work in the field of recovery. And I do what I have to do to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And my recovery comes first. Always.
Sure.
I've quit jobs so that I could be clean and stay clean.
Because you recognize that.
Well, yeah. And I've left a relationship so I could stay clean.
Yeah.
That has to happen first. My dad passed away when I was using, and normally I wouldn't be able to handle that. And because I'm clean, I can be okay with that.
Yeah.
I can make amends for things I've done. I've done some horrible things. I mentioned I was one of those women who hated women. I've done some horrible things. I used to bully. I got in trouble for bullying one of the other girls in treatment. And that was the start of me learning that I needed to learn how to love other women, that they were not the enemy.
Yeah.
And I have some great women in the program who teach me that and who've taught me that. Now I teach women that, and it's this great cycle. I get to share my story. I go back to the Access program to share my story with women.
That's cool.
And, say, hey, this can work.
Sure.
It can. This is what you got to do to make it work.
Yeah. And sometimes I know that women are in the Access program, that sometimes they're in there their second, third time. And,
I don't know why. Why would you want to do that more than once?
Yeah. Because it's easy. They think it's easy anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Until they recognize that change has to be made.
Yeah.
Well, it's just an easy way to get off probation.
And it starts with a desire.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Yep. So.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about you just having hobbies, and I want you to share just a little piece of that about you.
Okay.
Because you are an interesting person.
Well, thank you.
So that journey is just the iceberg of who you are, because you are so many other things, and you're just a really incredible human now.
Well,
and I think, you've experienced this life, and now you're helping others, and you recognize that you're capable of helping others. And so that's what you do.
Yes.
But you're also an artist.
Yes. I draw, I paint. I've done I've actually done some tattoos too. I don't do a whole lot of tattoos because that's something you need to focus on and do pretty much only that. And I don't want to, disrespect that art by not focusing on that. But I do oils, acrylics, watercolor. I do commissions actually. Like people want me to paint stuff for them. I can paint stuff for them. I'm a really good conceptual artist. If you have an idea of stuff and you want to represent it by other things, tell me what you want to represent and I can come up with stuff.
Cool.
I do calligraphy, like I've been doing calligraphy since the 5th grade. And I sing. I've been singing my whole life. Like I'm an artsy person. Like I just love doing that stuff. I remember when I went to treatment and I started doing all this stuff, one of the counselors there is telling me, she's like, why are you an addict? You could do all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And I try to do that stuff now, you know, and so I sell my art. Sometimes I just give it away. And, you know, like last year I did some paintings for the silent auction at the Vagina Monologues.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know. I do a lot of that stuff. Sometimes I do it for free, just for whatever. Sometimes I do it to make extra money. I sell it online. I have a Facebook page called Tiga's Creations, Tigas, Tiga's Creations. That's my nickname, one of my nicknames. And I don't know. Sometimes I just do it for myself.
Yeah.
Like if it's too much, I'll put it out on a piece of canvas. And I don't know. I teach my clients that too sometimes. Like we do these things, pro socials. So I teach them that they can have fun in recovery. The ones that are there for 90 days. And so I get canvases and we do like those activities where everybody paints the same thing. So I teach them how to do the painting. They're like, I'm not artistic. And I'm like, just follow my directions. And if it doesn't look this exact same, that's okay, because that's the point. And then like later they have this masterpiece and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know I could do this. I'm like, exactly. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. You mentioned you work with your clients in this way. Can you just share where you work?
Yeah. I work at Four Winds Recovery Center.
Yeah.
A lot of people have this mistaken idea that it's been closed down. And what happened is the detox, we used to have the detox at Four Winds. And the detox part closed down. So we no longer have the detox there, but we still have the recovery, the inpatient recovery there. We also have outpatient recovery. So when the detox closed down, Presbyterian Medical Services, specifically TOTA, took over, and they now have the sobering center. So when the detox closed down at Four Winds, the sobering center took over.
Right.
So a lot of people kind of have this misconception that Four Winds closed. We didn't close.
Can I just confess that I'm one of those people?
Yeah.
Yeah. Until you and I started getting to know each other, I was like, oh my goodness, I should be referring people to Four Winds again.
Yeah, please.
And so, yeah, I want to make sure that everybody, and especially in this community, but in any community, you have to know that, you know, if you know somebody who's in addiction and they need help, there is probably a place in your community that you could reach out to. And just, you know, in this local San Juan County community, Four Winds is that resource.
Well, and like the Access program and the DWI program, they are court-ordered programs.
Right.
At Four Winds, you can walk in.
Yeah.
You can come in as a walk-in, but there is some things you have to do to be able to do that. You do have to show up clean and sober. So you need to be able to come in. We have allowances for THC, you know, because that's in your system for a while. Yeah. So we have allowances for that. However, nothing else. And you have to be able to pass a BAC. But you need to be able to get
blood alcohol content.
Yes, blood alcohol content. So, but you have to get a drug and alcohol assessment that says you need inpatient treatment. You need to get that. You can get that with us. We're actually the cheapest assessment in the area at $100. Unless you have Medicaid, you can get that from a few other places. Medicaid will cover that for free or whatever. But if you have to pay for it, we're the cheapest at $100. The rest of the other places that do assessments are anywhere from $125 to $290.
Wow.
But we can do the assessment. Once you get your assessment done, you need to get that into our intake coordinator, and she can set a bed date. And, you know, by all means, come in on your own, you know, or just get some help. Help your family know that that's there. We also have IOP, which is intensive outpatient, or OP, which is outpatient. So intensive outpatient, 3 hours a week for like 3 months, I believe. And then, or 3 hours a week, 3 hours a day, 3 days a week for 3 months.
There we go.
Yeah. And then OP is 1 hour a week for like 6 months.
Okay.
And it can be a step down. So you can do inpatient, then IOP, and then OP. And that just kind of helps you solidify your recovery. It's a great program. And then we have, like for local people, we have a 30-day program. And some people are like, 30 days is not enough. I would challenge that. I've worked in several places in this area. Four Winds is one of my favorites because we have a great program. Everyone who works there is very dedicated to our job, and we have a very multifaceted program. We hit it from a lot of different areas, and it's kind of a take what you need, leave the rest. And I guarantee there's going to be some things people learn there that can help them in their recovery. So
it's cool.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to put some links into Four Winds for folks.
Yeah.
And then probably some national links for addiction services.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we'll definitely put those links in Mo's description, so you can find those here.
Awesome.
Yeah. I want you to plug your unique stuff.
Oh yeah. So oh my gosh, I sell unique makeup, and that's something I wore unique makeup for 3 years. Self-care is something that, I mentioned that when I got into recovery, it kind of started because I stunk, right? I was obviously not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to be okay with me. And so I had to learn how to take care of myself, brushing my teeth, showering, brushing my hair. And I love makeup. So I started wearing makeup again. And a friend of mine did this unique party online on Facebook. And I loved it. Like, it's quality makeup. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. So when I started wearing it, I was like, well, this is all I want now. So what I did is I packaged up all the makeup I owned except for like my costume makeup for like Halloween and special occasions. And I threw it all in this box. It was like maybe 1.5 feet deep and I don't know, 2 feet wide. And I took it to Masada House, our local women's transitional recovery home.
Yeah.
And I put it on the kitchen table and I'm like, here you go, ladies, have at it. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I found this makeup company called Unique. I'm only going to buy their products from here on out. And they were kind of looking at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, take what you want. Some of my makeup, because I bought in bulk. So some of it was brand new. And they're like, okay. So they took all my makeup.
Yeah.
And I've just been buying Unique since then. High quality, extremely pigmented. A lot of our products are gluten-free, natural. Unique has this, they have the Defend Innocence and the Unique Foundation. And those foundations help women and young ladies who have survived or suffered from sexual assaults and things like that. And that's, again, a huge part of my life and something I believe in, which is another reason this company is amazing.
Yeah.
So anything I sell from Unique, a portion of those sales goes to those foundations and helps a survivor. And it's great. Like on my dashboard, it tells me how many women I've saved or helped. And I think like I'm up to 230 something women that I've helped.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It is. It's great. And I love that. I love opening that up and seeing that I've helped women. They do drives and things like that. It's great. And then I feel great. I feel great wearing their products. They have, the products look great on women of all ages. And it's, they have skincare, which is another great thing. Cause there's some women who are like, yeah, I don't wear makeup. That's fine. You still need to take care of your skin. And that's kind of something new. And that's something like I've been taking care of my skin better. And I'm like, I can feel the difference and I'm starting to really see it. I felt it first. Now I'm like, oh my gosh.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting across from you still wearing the same makeup I was wearing last night.
No.
I know it's bad.
No.
Stop judging me.
No judgment. Horror. Can't do that.
I know. I'm a little ashamed of myself.
We will talk later. But yeah, it's a great company, and I saw it. it's great because they do it all online. I can do it from my phone.
Yeah.
And I always have my phone or my iPad. Like, I can take care of you from wherever I'm at, from wherever you're at. Like,
Yeah.
it's great. Like,
Cool.
it's so versatile. It's great. You can make money doing it. It's awesome.
Cool. Cool. Well, I always say to my guests, I never want to cut you off. And I want to make sure that you have been able to share all of the things about your journey and your story that you would like to share. Is there anything else before we stop?
Oh, gosh. You know, I don't know. I think I just want to say I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really grateful I got to be in the Vaginal Monologues again this year. It's a great thing. If you didn't get to see it, check it out again next year or check it out next year. Check it all out. Be a part of your community and, you know, just live a good life.
Yeah.
That's what's important. We need to be there for each other. That's even more important now than it ever has been before, I think.
For sure. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Monica, for just sitting down with me and sharing your journey and really, I think inspiring. There's going to be somebody that is encouraged and inspired by this. I know for sure it's going to happen. So thank you for sitting down and doing this. This has been another episode of Small Town Expectations. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.